What's up, guys? So today I have a little treat for y'all. Got a field investigator from MUFON. He's actually certified and stuff. But before we begin with that, I just want to tell all 83 of y'all that I appreciate y'all sticking with me. I appreciate y'all subscribing to the channel. I appreciate y'all commenting and joining my Discord. It means so much to me. I mean, I tell everybody that I got 83 subscribers. I know a lot of people don't think that's a lot, but to me, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of stories. That's a lot of families. And I don't know, it just means so much to me that they are sticking with me. Without further ado, here's Jesse. He is, like I said, a MUFON field investigator. And we're going to see what kind of stories he's got. Hope y'all enjoy. Welcome to Paranormal, more normal than we think. So today I'm joined with Jesse. He's a field investigator for MUFON, and he was so kind enough to join us on this journey today. He is going to tell us a couple stories he's got, some projects he's in. He may tell us about some cases he's investigating. How are you doing today, Jesse?
I'm doing really good, and I want to thank you, Eric, for having me on the show today. It's an honor to be here and share my experience and what's going on in the UFO world with you guys.
I'm looking forward to more MUFON folks. Like, y'all are awesome. Each one of y'all have been really nice and just really respectful, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely, thank you. I appreciate that, man. It means a lot.
Definitely.
I think most of us are in it for the right reason. So we respect being able to come on other people's shows and share our experiences, and we get into this field for the reason of helping people. So that's what it's all about.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, alrighty, Jesse. Well, let's start off with something big. So, what would you say is probably your most convincing investigation that you've done so far?
I am a director of a project called Bat Tech 404, where we investigate electrical malfunctions associated with UFO sightings. So one of the very first cases that I got when I was doing this is a gentleman was driving his vehicle heading home, and he seen a craft out the left side of his window. As he seen this craft was actually coming towards him, he decided to pull his vehicle off the road to try to take a picture and just get a good look at this thing. So when he stepped out of the vehicle, he had a Sirius XM radio playing on in his vehicle as he was driving. And when he pulled over, and he was just on the phone, he hung up the phone, gets out of the vehicle, tries to take a picture, and his phone battery goes completely dead. So he hops back in the car, and he realizes that his Sirius XM radio has no signal whatsoever as this thing's getting closer to him. So it completely cut off all contact that he had completely. The phone was just at a full battery. He just got off the phone. He was just listening to the radio. So he decided to hop in the vehicle and start driving away. And as he got farther and made some distance between this craft, his Sirius XM radio popped back on. And the phone wouldn't work until he took the battery back out and plugged it back in. So that's what we're really looking into, how these UFOs are affecting this technology the way this is. It's all about different frequencies and what they're using off of these craft to affect our tech. And we're not sure if it's something built into these craft by itself, or if they're doing this by the push of a button to affect our technology to stop all communications of what's going on around them. But this guy was really sincere. Ex-military, very, very good site. I mean, he checked out completely. So the story was incredible. And he sent the information over, we plugged it in, and it's one of the best cases that I've worked on so far with the project. It blows my mind that these craft are able to just, with the blink of an eye, stop all communications and all of our technology at the flick of a button. So that was pretty much one of the big ones for the project. But I have dealt with some experiencers on the side as well. And some of the cases they're dealing with attachments, entities, putting implants into their bodies. I had a case one time where a lady was abducted in the middle of the night. And she woke up to three beings at the end of her bed. And they wind up taking her up to the craft and doing a full body, exam on her. And that's all she remembered. And she woke up the next morning into her bed. And when she woke up, she looked down at her leg, and she had these markings on her leg, and she had a lump there. And she was actually able to push this lump underneath of her skin about 1.5 to 2 inches all the way around it. like in a circular pattern,
Oh my goodness.
and it completely was able to move. And she would get these warm feelings from that location, like you know how people get hot flashes.
Hmm.
The area would irritate and get extremely hot sometimes, like it was giving off some kind of I don't know, interference or some kind of connection, like, you know. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Roger Lear. He was a big implant guy, took implants out of people. And he described this a lot. So it lined up perfectly with what his research says. And when she actually went and got this taken out, um, it completely had a membrane around the object. And what that membrane did was stop the inflammation from the body being able to reject this object. So it was placed in there so the body wouldn't show any signs of, you know, any kind of infection or rejection of the body where it starts to get infected and stuff. Once they removed that membrane, it was more like some kind of metal, like a and some were even said to be pieces of meteorite metal.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and you know, there was some even when they tested it before that it would actually give off signals inside the body, and once removed from the body, there was no more connection whatsoever. But it's just crazy to happen to find a meteorite with a membrane around it that's giving off a signal inside, and once you remove it, it doesn't.
That is
It's
wild, man.
yeah, extraordinary,
It makes
pretty
me.
crazy stuff, man.
What do you think that? Okay, so first off, that's a lot of information. It's incredibly interesting, man. I love that. Uh, I'll go ahead and tell you, I have a lot of nights. I have insomnia real bad, and I have a lot of nights where my door will be cracked, or even when my door's shut, I'll always watch that door because I'm so scared there's gonna be something just walking in here trying to take me for a vacation to outer space without me asking. And
Yeah, man.
I'm not a big fan of that. Now, if they ask, different story. But
Oh yeah, of course.
what do you think these implants are for? Like, what do you think they do? Do you have any idea?
There's been a couple different, you know, hypotheses of what these objects are doing. Some say that they're keeping track of the body and how the body's working. You know, kind of like how you go to the doctor and he gives you a complete overall physical.
Hmm.
Well, they say these objects can remotely give that physical to whatever being put the implant in there. If it was a being, if it's an implant, if that's what it really is. They also say maybe it's something to be able to track somebody. They want to know where somebody is at all times. There's a bunch of different hypotheses as to what it could be, but we're not exactly sure. You know, we just have a couple ideas of what it might be.
Yeah, I try to tell everybody who comes on my show that. So, well, I tell everybody, even regardless if they're on it or not, that we don't know too much about this phenomenon. So, kind of, the majority of things we have to go on is speculation, and
Right.
that's fine with me. You know, like I like to speculate. I enjoy it. But once we do start getting facts, that's when I feel like we should all kind of tighten up and really just stick to that factual path. But until then, I just like to hypothesize, to speculate. And that's where good theories come from, anyways.
Absolutely, and that's what we have to go off of. We have people that do research, and then we take over where they left off, and we continue that research, and then we can narrow things down and find the comparisons, and it makes it easier to give an explanation for these things. You know.
Absolutely. I agree.
Exactly. Our research is even finding, like, we're getting data now. Finally, we're working with some scientists in AI, and we're figuring out the distances between these objects that they have to be in to be able to affect our technology. We're also getting the enough data to find out the duration of these events. To know that range that a UFO has to be in to affect our tech, that's like one of the key things that we need to know. And we've actually worked out some really good data to find this stuff out, which is incredible. Because we want to know what that is. You want to know how far you got to be to not be affected, you know? So it's very interesting to finally get some numbers up. And we have a whole website that you can go on and check out our team, our goals. We also have a page linked to that page where you can actually check out a lot of the cases that we've already investigated. I mean, they go back to military cases, submarine cases, all kinds of stuff, nuclear weapons being shut down, everyday people with their regular tech being affected. It's pretty incredible stuff. Yeah. So the project is Project Bat Tech 404. And BATTech stands for battery technology, and 404 is a basic error code that you get with cell phones, batteries, all kinds of stuff. Um, and So basically, we want to find out all the answers we can about this. And you can go onto the website. It's called projectbattech404.wordpress.com. And we put all of our main goals that we're trying to figure out, what the technology is. Like I said, the distances, the duration of these events. We're also looking at some different ways that we could possibly shield our technology from this being affected by looking at different frequencies and different things that aren't affected. We've come across that diesel engines before 1974 were not affected by UFOs, but a normal combustion engine, sitting right next to the diesel engine, would be affected. Now, the headlights and the radio in the diesel truck would be affected, but the engine itself would not. Now, that was before 1974, but in 1974 was the first important U.S. federal emission standards for heavy-duty off-road engines. So they actually made some upgrades to increase the power density, gradual weight reduction, turbocharging, and air cooling. And then after that point, the engines were starting to be affected now. So we're trying to look in to see what these engines were made out of, and what materials they were made out of, to maybe possibly make some sort of shield to protect our technology from being affected now. I mean, it's a deep rabbit hole, and it's pretty crazy the stuff we're finding out now finally. And to be able to work with scientists that actually know their way around technology this way, and aerospace historians, I mean, it's incredible.
I would love to get a hold of like a scientist and interview him. That would be so interesting.
Right. And you can find a lot of scientists like that. I'm a part of the SCU, which is the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies as well. I'm a attributing member, and I was looking into investigating for them. I've actually done one case for them already. But a lot of the members there have PhDs and are scientists. And that's actually, where I've met some of the people that help with the project. And they really have immaculate backgrounds in this stuff. I mean, the guy we're working with now, he's worked at, the Canadian Space Station up there in Canada. He's been doing that for over 10 years. He's got masters in like aeronautics. I mean, it's incredible. And to have that kind of mind behind your project to be able to help you with that, I mean, it's key,
Well, this is incredible. You are definitely the first guest that has this many accolades behind, your stories and everything you say. Like, you are definitely the most qualified for this story that I've had so far.
I appreciate that.
Oh, man, I appreciate that.
The reason I started this project in the first place was because it actually happened to me. I was driving with my father, and we were driving down, and we live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It's a city, you know what I mean? I'm ex-Army National Guard, so I'm very familiar with planes and the different things and objects we have in our skies. And he actually pointed out in the sky 4 gold objects that were flying in a 2-and-2 set formation. And I kind of looked up at it and was like, oh my God, what is that? And, my dad said he has never seen nothing like that his entire life. I had never seen any military or civilian aircraft that looked like that. And then they switched into a formation from 2-and-2 to one behind the other, single file line. So I grabbed my phone, which was a brand new phone. I had just only had it for 2 or 3 weeks. And I pull it out and I try to record, and my phone and as we're driving, we're getting closer to these objects. So it's like I got into a certain range, and it affected my phone and corrupted it. I couldn't even put the password into my phone to open the camera. So then as we started speeding up, we caught up to them a little, or we backed off. We hit a red light, and then they continued to go and started to disappear. And then right as the second from last and the last one were about to disappear, my phone clicked on. And I was able to record that last object and the second one just as it was disappearing. So that blew my mind. And then I started seeing other cases that their technology and phones were being affected the same way. And it was like, we got to look into this. This is something.
Yeah, definitely something for national defense at least.
Yeah, man, it's crazy.
Yeah, something that scares me. I definitely want to comment on your story because that sounds very interesting in and of itself. But something that I heard on a podcast, I'd say a couple months ago, was them talking about weaponizing these craft. Like if a different country got a hold of it, they could easily strap a bunch of nukes to it and teleport it over a city in literally a second. And
Absolutely.
that stuff is terrifying to me. But something I want to ask you personally, with you being an investigator, have you ever witnessed anything having like malicious intent? Like, would you think any of these things are mean, evil, or anything like that?
Well, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, and I believe that there's good and bad, just like there is good and bad people.
That's what I was
I
hoping
believe
you would say.
there's there's multiple different kinds of people in this world, so I wouldn't think that there wouldn't be different kinds of ET or extraterrestrial biological entities in the world as well. So, I'm an experiencer myself. I've had some experiences. I'm still working through them in a way. But there's been times where I've been scared out of my mind. And so I know I usually go with my gut feeling. And I've been around positive ones and negative ones. And the negative ones it's just a feeling that comes over you and you know that it's not good. And it scares the living crap out of you. And, to have a feeling like that, to me, that's not a good entity. If it was good, it wouldn't give me that feeling like that.
Yeah,
The
like
urge
you're
to not want to
petrified.
look to exactly. And that doesn't I've not had that happen to me in my life very often. And it's happened at least 2 times with that. So I believe there's just as bad as there's good. So
Right, and the reason I ask you that is because I tend to ask everybody that, because if you look on YouTube nowadays, when you see an alien video, it's almost like they always try to put music in the background or say stuff that make it seem like every one of these things are malicious. Every one of them want to do harm. But I just
no,
don't believe that. And
no, not at all.
everybody I've interviewed has said pretty much the same thing you said.
I've heard cases plenty of times where people have been healed of different, sicknesses or illnesses. I know a couple people got their hearing back once they had their encounter,
Wow.
completely deaf, and then woke up the next morning and they could hear fine. And it blew them away. I know people that have had lung cancer and then woke up the next day and there was no sign of it. These are stories, of course, but they have the documentation from the hospitals saying this. So there's something happened. It's incredible. So there's good and bad, and I believe there's more good than bad, but there is bad. Some people, this has come across again and again, and even just going to different conferences and hearing people talk and even read. I'm a big book reader, and you hear people talk about that these orbs sometimes are not craft; they're actually the entities themselves, and they give off a certain light, and that's how they travel. They can, the entity themselves is the orb. So, like for example, when you see people or crop circles being made, there's a couple of videos out there of orbs, coming down into a crop field and creating this incredible design. And some people say that's the actual entity coming down and creating this. It's not an actual craft. So, and then you get ones that, have that light on there, just like a craft. And usually there's a couple different lights on the craft, but I think it's a mix between entities themselves and crafts.
I agree with that. Like
Of course.
That's the thing with aliens. There's so many different species. I don't think it's just one species coming to Earth.
No way. You got to be open-minded in this field, and that's like one of the big things I say is a requirement. If you're going to get into this field, you have to be open-minded because there's so much we don't know. We really don't know anything. This is all going based off of research that has been done over time that we go off of here. Yes, we do have photographs and databases of stuff, but in the end, we really don't know how many people are out there and how many entities are out there, how many different civilizations are out there. It could be thousands, it could be millions, and they could have been around way before us, or they could have messed with our DNA. And there's a guy that wrote a book and he's stating that there's 82 different kind of ET beings. There's other people that claim numbers as well. So you have to be open-minded to the thought that anything is possible with ufology.
Definitely. I agree with that 100%. You said that you know of a story of a lady who had beings come into her room. So,
Yes.
what would you say these beings look like? And if it's not just in this incident, can you tell me other beings, like the biology of other beings, possibly?
Well, there's the main beings people see are the grays. Now, there's different types of grays that we have been reported, and a lot of us have come to the conclusion that the grays are not actual living organisms. They're actually we would consider them robots that do like they're like the drones that do all the work for the worker bees, you know.
Right.
They come down, they take you up to the ship, and then usually when people are up in the ship, the grays take them there. But the grays wind up leaving, and they see this other, say, a Nordic or a tall white come in that looks like a humanoid, and they say that one's usually the one in charge. I mean, there's different types of species. We have the humanoids, like I said, or the tall whites that just looks like humans, or like an albino person, are similar to that with blue eyes, blonde hair, pale white skin. And the drones usually do all the work, if you notice, in a lot of cases, abduction cases. And then you have the reptilians, which have a lot of people give them a negative sense because they're known to do a lot of hurtful things to people when they take them. And then you have people like the insectoids that look like praying mantises. I mean, and these are all reported from people that have been taken. This is accounts of over time. I mean, all the way back before I was born, people have reported these kind of beings. Those are the main four that you usually see. Now, there's other cases that have had people that look like, like the Hopkinsville case, where they had a bunch of what looked like little tiny devils that were hopping around, and they were shooting them with shotguns, and the bullets were bouncing off of them. There's so many different kind. I really don't know for a fact how many, but I know the main four that are the grays, the humanoid tall whites, the insectoids, and the reptilians. Those are the main four that we deal with most of the time when we're dealing with experiencers and MUFON, or on the side as well.
Man, I love how knowledgeable you are. Everything you said, I've pretty much had to research on my own, but you just got it all up in your head. I love it.
That was one thing, man. I got, when I started getting into this field in 2015, 2016, I've always wondered if there was life out there my entire life, but I really started digging in then. And I found out about MUFON, but I was like, I'd like to be a field investigator, but I'm going to take a whole year, and I learned everything that I possibly could about the UFO phenomenon. I mean, I watched hundreds of documentaries. I did tons of research on each individual person that was on a documentary, what they're working on, what MUFON's doing, all different organizations. And then once I got all that down, I had notebooks, filled out to the T, piles of them. And then I joined the field and got involved, because I wasn't going to come into the field not being knowledgeable. Because if you don't know all your knowledge and you're getting into the field, you can make mistakes. And I wasn't going to be that person that does that. If I'm going to dedicate my time to helping people and investigating cases and working with experiencers, I'm going to make sure that I know all of my stuff and I'm educated to the fullest to be able to make sure that someone comes out the other end on a positive note.
Well, that's very admirable. That's actually good information for any of y'all who are watching this who would like to pursue what he's doing. Very, very good information. Do you have any inkling that the paranormal events on Earth are somehow connected to alien intervention or UFOs or anything like that? And what I mean is like ghosts or these Michigan dogmen and just any paranormal cryptids type deal. Do you think they're involved with aliens?
So if you probably went back maybe 10 or 15 years ago, probably about 10, 12 years ago, if you tried to say that UFOs and Bigfoot were similar or had something to do with each other, it was looked down upon. People didn't accept that. People always got in debates. But now today, within the past 10 years, we're finding that more and more cases are similar, and that these things somehow are intertwined in some avenue of what they do. There's been cases now reported where they're in the woods camping with their family, and they're chased by these Bigfoots, and then they're also seeing UFOs in the sky. We've had people that say, oh, well, there's crypto terrestrials out there now. That I interviewed a gentleman that wrote a book about them. And they're crypto, and they use boa suits that make them look like the Predator jumping from tree to tree, but they're an ET. So I believe that, sometimes a lot of the times we misidentify things. So, where someone will say, oh, well, this was a ghost. Well, maybe it was an ET, that made himself look like that, and he had a UFO, and that's why you saw the UFO. He came from there. Same thing with the Bigfoot. Maybe that's just a type of entity that came down and tried to visit you from that craft. And we're getting a lot of cases like this now, and more paranormal people and UFO people are joining forces and investigating together. So yes, I do believe that they are intertwined at some point in time.
And see, that's why I titled the show "Paranormal: More Normal Than We Think." So I don't know if you've heard about the missing 411 phenomenon
Yes.
in the force and stuff. So I was watching videos about that last night, and this guy, he continued to tell stories of these predator-like beings who are in these trees or, walking in fields, and they have the outline of a human who's cloaked. The majority of those are probably true. They're probably witness accounts, and they probably are aliens.
So I had a case not long ago where I was watching. It was actually on a documentary, and this lady went out back into the woods. She has tons of acres, and she went to go up in her hunting stand in a tree, and she's sitting out there by herself, and all of a sudden, out the corner of her eye, she hears everything get really quiet. The crickets stop. There's just a little slight breeze, but she can't hear none of the bugs. It all got silent, really eerie. And then at the corner of her eye, she sees something moving. She looks, and she sees something that looks like the Predator, and it's hanging onto a tree, and it starts jumping to another tree and to another tree until it disappeared in the woods. And it completely freaked her out. Well, at that same moment, there was a football game going on, in this little town, probably not that far away from where she was. And they actually witnessed a UFO in the sky over top of the field. All the kids, all the football team, the parents, everybody that attended the game, they witnessed this craft in the sky. So then she's seeing that, and they're seeing this, and they have to be connected in some way, to have both of that happen in the same area like that, and it's
Yeah,
just,
two
that's
highly
why,
unlikelies at once. Yeah, I agree.
right, you know,
And
happening around the same time. I'm pretty sure that creature probably came from that UFO, or they dropped him off or something. It's you gotta think about it like that.
definitely. And there's a commonality with what you're saying too. Every time the dude was telling the story, like whenever the person felt like something was amiss, the woods would always go silent. It would always
Yes.
fall silent. And that's something interesting too. How would, animals know that this thing is there if we can barely see it? And then that goes back to how babies and animals can sense things that we can't. And I feel like that's
Right.
probably why. That's my opinion, though.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the reasons that I figured out that I was having experiences is because of my cat. um,
That's awesome.
animals can see in a whole different frequency, and they can see in different colors, and they can see things that we cannot see. And my cat would always draw attention to my one part of my room, all the time. And I mean, she would watch things, and I'm watching her watch these objects or whatever it is. I had no idea at the time. But that's what gave it away. And I'd have her come in my room every night, and she would watch this thing or whatever it was until it would leave. And then she would lay down with me. And that's how I found out that something was going on. And that's what led me to explore what was happening. So animals definitely can help you in these situations. If you're having experiences where you think you are, bring your animal in the room with you, and just pay attention.
For sure, for sure. I've had my daughter before. Me and my brother were walking outside, and we live in North Alabama, so there's like fields everywhere. And
Right.
so my daughter was looking off in a field, and she just threw her hand up and started waving and smiling and saying, "Hey, look over there! Hey, look over there!" She was I'd say about 2, almost 3 at the time. And so, like, me and my brother looked at each other. We were scanning. We could not see anything. And as soon as we realized that there was nothing there, we both looked at each other and we took off. I snatched her up and I ran. I was out.
That's strange.
Very strange. And she didn't seem scared. She didn't seem frightened. So, whatever it was, I'm sure it was, nice, but still. Like, I don't like not being able to see whatever's in front of me.
Oh, of course, absolutely.
I'm not sure anyone would.
No, not at all. But that's incredible. She actually saw something that you guys didn't, and you witnessed that. You
Well,
know?
she's an empath. She is.
Okay.
She's such an empath that when I have a son and a daughter. My daughter's 3 now. My son is 7. So if my son is in his room, and let's say something hits him, and he's upset that he's hurt, my daughter, I'm not kidding, my daughter can almost feel like she's hurt, and she will become upset, but she won't know why. Or if I start fake crying, she will start fake crying, or not fake crying, she'll start real crying. And it's like she gets other people's emotions mixed up with her own.
Yeah.
And
that's incredible.
Oh yeah, it's very interesting. Like, I like to listen to her when she talks during her sleep, just to hear what she talks about. She's a very interesting little girl.
Absolutely. Yeah, wait till she gets a little older and she can learn to use that. Usually you're born with that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? So even if she loses a little bit, she can always dig in and kind of pull it back out. It's always going to be there. Right. It's just depending on it, you know, how far she lets it go. And then if you keep her around that kind of stuff and leave her open-minded, then she could find it again always.
Supposedly all the women in my family have this ability to, like, sense stuff is just amiss. So maybe that's where she gets it from.
Yeah, absolutely. It's usually genetic. That's what we find a lot of times, and that even works with experiencers as well. So usually the empaths and people like that, like your daughter, it usually does run in the family. I guarantee if you asked your mom and siblings going forward, they'd probably tell you stories that they might not even have told you, you know? I found that out with a couple of my family members, you know?
That's a good
so
idea.
That's pretty neat. Yeah.
I might actually do that for like a subscriber special. Like, I've got 83, so like if I hit 100, I might just interview my mom. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I've been trying to get my my dad to come on mine, but he hasn't wanted to do it yet. Not ready yet.
They get embarrassed.
Yep.
I would love to do like a 6-hour long interview, but as I'm the one who edits these videos, oh, buddy, a 30-minute video is hard, much less an hour. But I will say, I am incredibly humbled and grateful for you coming on my show. And I would love to have you back, man. I really would.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was an honor for me to be on here today. I appreciate the accepting the invite and having me on, and I'd be happy to come on again for sure.
Absolutely. Well, perfect. That works for me. Well, guys, y'all go check him out. Seriously, y'all sat through this whole interview. You gotta like him. Go check him out. Give him some love, guys. Well, again, Jesse, I appreciate it, buddy. And I will holler at you as soon as I get this video done.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Eric. I had a great time.
Thank you for your time, buddy.
All right.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
I enjoyed that conversation. I really did. I would love to have more MUFON folks on here because they seem to know what they're talking about. But I also don't want to forget about each and every one of y'all, because each and every one of y'all are who the MUFON folks investigate in the first place. I may not be a MUFON member, of course. But anyways, I appreciate y'all sticking around and y'all watching all this. Until next time, guys, y'all have a good one.